On today's show, Laura Heywood interviews
choreographer extraordinaire, Chase Brock. Welcome to Laura Heywood Interviews. I'm Laura Heywood. If you follow my social media at all, and that's at Broadway Girl NYC, you know I'm a big fan of Be More Chill. This is the show that had a small out-of-town production, followed by a big lull that everyone involved thought was the end, followed by an out-of-the-blue surge of online interest. We're talking hundreds of thousands of album streams, which led to tons of fan forums, fan art, and fan fiction, which ultimately led this little weird musical, which I say hugely lovingly, to Broadway. No small part of the success of this show is due to my guest today. Chase Brock is not just a choreographer. He's a visual storyteller who actually created a physical language for the personified computer in the show, the Squip, using a method called finger tutting, a term that I understand refers to angles that approximate those shown in Egyptian hieroglyphics dating back to King Tut. He's created a means of movement that's exceptional and fascinating, both modern and ancient, and everyone I know who's seen it immediately tries to imitate it and wants to learn every distinct intricacy of this physical expression. But look, Be More Chill is not Chase's only accomplishment by a long shot. He made his Broadway debut at age 16 after moving to New York alone as a teenager. He formed his own dance company, the Chase Brock Experience, at age 23. He worked on Spiderman Turn Off the Dark as it was transitioning between creative teams. And I love this part. He worked carefully to honor his idol and mine, Julie Taymor, even as she exited the project. And he's currently choreographing Hercules, the musical, a groundbreaking collaboration between Disney Theatrical and the Public Theater's Public Works Initiative, which casts community members from all 5 New York City boroughs alongside equity actors to emphasize that theater does, in fact, belong to the people. Chase and I met less than a year ago, which is hard to believe because I just adore him so much, and it feels like we're old friends. He's one of the most colorful people I know, and not just because of his trademark mismatched yet somehow perfectly harmonically patterned fashion choices, but also because of his enthusiasm, joyfulness, open heart, creativity, and willingness to let his true self shine through. In a world that often rewards convention, Chase has embraced and broadcast a commitment to invention instead, both on and off the stage, and I'm so thrilled he's here. Welcome, Chase Brock!
Oh my gosh, Laura, that introduction was unbelievable. Thank you so much for having me and for always speaking so beautifully and articulately about theater and things you're passionate about.
I just love you so much, and you know, we first met when I did an interview with you and the other creatives from Be More Chill before the show made it to Broadway, or as it was on its way to transitioning between off-Broadway and on-Broadway, and now here you are, deep into the run and preparing for a big 5-week send-off.
Oh my gosh, what a surreal year.
I know.
It's been absolutely wild, and you know, you sort of said it in the intro. None of us could have predicted how any of this would go, really from beginning to end. From the moment we were doing the show at Two River Theater, to, you know, getting our kind of closing notice and making the most of our chill summer on Broadway. It's been a wild ride every step of the way, and really one of the most unexpected, joyful things I've ever been part of.
I think it's like the most authentic theatrical experience that is out there, not just that it sort of shows high school the way high school really feels, but also because everybody who was involved just did it because they wanted to, did it because they loved it. And, you know, except for maybe the decision to finally bring it to Broadway on behalf of the lead producer whose job it is to think about money, I feel like every other single person just did it because it felt right in their gut. And those are the shows I want to come to Broadway, the ones that are born out of love and not dollar signs.
You know, I think Broadway has room for all of it. I mean, I think, you know, business is booming, as you know, and it's such an exciting time. I think we're in a golden age, and I don't know if we know that. I don't know if you ever know that until later, but it does feel like such a gift to be part of sort of one of the heartfelt, truly in it for the right reasons, kind of labor of love shows in the way that you're talking about. And, you know, I don't know if anybody who is on the outside of it can ever, you know, totally trust us when we say this, because I always say it all the time, but this is a labor of love. It has been, you know, this thing that nobody knew they were going to have a big payday. Nobody was trying to engineer a big commercial hit. Nobody was trying to reach as big an audience as possible. Really, this was, you know, people, weird people, strange weirdos in a room together, making a thing that we believed in, that we thought we would like to have seen, you know, at teenage, high school age, or at any age, really. And nobody ever kind of told us no. I mean, it wasn't that we had no limits or that we weren't being responsible about resources and money and time, but we were allowed to explore all of our ideas for this show kind of to their ultimate endpoint. And I think that is why it feels authentic.
Yeah, because it is. I know there are people who say things like, because I'm around the show a lot.
Yeah, we're so glad.
I
Are
know.
you
Well,
kidding?
it is such a welcoming family, and I use family with a capital F because Joe Iconis and family is literally like his artistic family.
But the family also spreads out. You are in the family.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, I got a note from a member of the creative team that said like, welcome to the family, which just feels like the ultimate compliment, knowing what that word means. But I was going to say, like, I think I hear people say some version of, how did you know to do this? How did you know that, like, starting a show out of town was going to get you all this viral sensation and, like, ultimately get you to Broadway? That was so smart of you to be so forward thinking.
Oh my God! If only it worked like that.
I know,
and we
can you imagine?
I mean, I have been part of something like 27 new musicals in my career, and I've done 3 of those musicals on Broadway, one as an assistant and 2 as choreographer. And, so the vast majority of things like do not, make it that far. And I think so often you are trying to engineer this thing and make it happen and take it out of town and hope for the best. And, and of course we were hoping for the best with this. I don't think you can put your whole soul and heart into a show like this without falling in love with it and allowing yourself somewhere in the back of your mind to dream of that Broadway opening. But unquestionably, I've been part of things that really tried to engineer that. In almost every case, it did not work out. And in this case, we were not trying to do that. We were trying to make a great show for 5 weeks at Two River Theater. And, and then 4 years later, we're on Broadway. I mean, it just was... It was not in anyone's master plan how this has unfolded.
I think people want an algorithm, and there's just no algorithm for authentic passion and fun you have with your friends. There just isn't. People ask me the same thing, like, how did you know that Broadway Girl was going to go from like a tiny early adopter Twitter account to a sensation? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Social media was not even a term at the time. And to tweet was not a verb. It was called microblogging. It was like something that I just did literally on a whim.
Wow.
Before I went to the theater one day, I was like, maybe I'll have a blog. And I created a Twitter account to promote the blog. And the blog never really happened. But the Twitter account, because of the timing and because it's essentially a broadcasting medium, and I'd been doing radio for 15 years already, and I somehow had an instinct to create a character that was both aspirational and authentic, like only talk about the good stuff, because most of the people who stumble across it are going to be like, I wish I had that life. And how do you want to, like, you really want to look at somebody who wishes they had your life and go like, no, they didn't come out the stage door tonight.
Of course.
F you,
No,
So
totally.
Anyway,
No, your
not that I would
spirit has made
actually say F you to anybody, but I thought, I want to represent the best of what the industry is. And it turned out that while that was a semi-conscious decision at the beginning, it actually worked kind of as a muscle where I just trained myself to put a positive spin on anything in my life for the broadcast. And it was like it built new neural pathways in my brain. And now I tend to think of things with a positive spin. Like if I'm in a taxi and I'm late to something, I'm like, normally it would be like, yeah, I can catch up on my audiobook or whatever, but like I'm late and I'm stressed. And now my brain automatically will be like, I'm late and I'm stressed, but I can focus on like catching up on my audiobook. It flips the before and after. And anyway, I've just gone off on a tangent.
Who needs opening numbers? I love it. You can get excited to see the second number in the show if you're late in a taxi.
I mean, luckily, it's been a long time since I was actually late to a show, but I feel like we are trained to our body. I'm fascinated by neural chemistry and like evolutionary biology.
Wow.
This is in one of the ways in which Broadway is not my only interest.
That's fascinating.
But we do, our bodies, when we feel stressed, we equate it with getting things accomplished. And so in some ways we lean into stress because it makes us feel productive. And that is satisfying on a biological level when in fact it's actually destructive. So there are ways you can train your brain to turn that off.
Oh
Although
my God. I'm a meditator, and
oh my
I've
gosh.
I started in January of I think 2011. So I've been doing it for a while now, and and there are times when I go kind of in and out of being more committed to it, and then sort of having lower quality meditations on the subway, and all that stuff. But I totally know what you mean about your ability to sort of rewire your thinking by practicing something. Sort of it could be any number of things, but it is. I totally know that is possible, and what a happy outcome of your persona for Broadway Girl.
What kind of meditation do you practice?
So this is how it all started. Rob Fisher, who was the founding music director of the Encore series at City Center, was our neighbor upstate in the Hudson Valley. And he had a sort of little side room that was like a meditation room. And it looked so fabulous. And he had all these great books and all this great stuff. And I started asking him kind of questions about it, and I was curious, and he sort of dropped off Sharon Salzberg's book, Real Happiness, which had a CD of guided meditation. There was 4 guided meditations.
CDs?
Yeah, I was laughing as I was imagining that in my head. But yeah, there was a guided CD. I think it's a download now. And he actually is a friend of Sharon's, and so anyway, I read the book, and I was headed actually to LA to choreograph a commercial, and I woke up really early, and I sat in my window, and I put on the guided meditation, and I totally had a cellular response. I started crying, and it was really intense, and it was kind of a sign that, yes, I in fact needed to get in touch and sort of reconnect all of these strands of my brain and heart and spirit that had been frayed by, the business and all of the things I'd been focusing on. And so ironically, Spiderman happened about 2 months after that, and I truly don't think I could have gotten through that experience without it. And there were times that I meditated 4 times a day.
I can imagine.
During our pre-production and rehearsal for that.
I'm so glad you used the word practice, because I didn't understand how to meditate, and I practice transcendental meditation. And like you, I go in and out of being able to be disciplined enough to do it for 20 minutes twice a day, like they say you should. But I know that some is better than none, and
Definitely.
Not to make the perfect the enemy of the good. It's one of my constant mantras.
Yes.
Although not my official TM mantra, which is a different kind of mantra. Anyway, it reminds. I didn't understand how to practice something like meditation until I got really into fitness, because fitness is the only place that I've actually seen long-term results when there was a total absence of short-term results.
Yeah.
I can go to the gym and do 2 hours of hard working out and get on a scale and see nothing.
Yeah.
And a week later, I still see nothing. But then 3 months later, my whole body's different. And
Absolutely.
I'm like, oh, that's how meditation is. You go and you struggle through it, and it sucks, and it's uncomfortable. And then one day, 3 months down the line, you go oh, now I see it. And it's a growth mindset thing. And I think about something like this radio show the same way, that because what people can't see is that in addition to hosting, I'm also pressing all the buttons. And
I don't know how you're doing that.
And I've done that on music radio before, but then you talk, you press the song, and then you prepare for the next thing during those 3.5 to 5 minutes. Whereas doing it for a full production, it's are we archiving? Are we monitoring? Did the automatic record start, or whatever?
Yes.
And in the earlier episodes, I'm you're going to hear mistakes. This is live. It's not edited. Even for people who are listening on the free podcast version, which comes out a week later, I don't go back and edit it. You hear all of it. And it's practice. I'm going to get better, and you're going to get to witness the process. Which brings me to choreography and dance, because I know that while there are people who are born with a predilection for movement, you don't dance the way that you do, or the way that any professional does, without hours upon hours upon hours, thousands of hours of practice.
Yeah, of course. It's that, what is the Malcolm Gladwell thing about 10,000 hours? It kind of does ultimately average out to that. And I think that, Yeah, for whatever reason, most of us who are in theater and dance, like, are obsessed. We're obsessed people. And even from the time I was like 6 and 7 years old, I was like, I'm going to be on Broadway and I'm going to do this. And this is, and there's probably unhealthy things about that kind of identification as if that's like who we are, because of course that's not who we are.
Our obsessions.
Yeah, but it does fuel those many hours of practice that have to happen initially to sort of get you to a place where you actually are able to do these things that you're dreaming of and that are at any kind of goal that you're trying to reach. So. Yeah, it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of driving across to different states for dance lessons and private tap class. And I was in a ballet program at Ballet Spartanburg where I would be there from like 4:00 in the afternoon till 10:00 at night, like 5 days a week, and then on Saturdays also.
I heard you talk about that in another interview where you talked about it like the thing you did on the side was a 6-hour a day ballet program. And I was like, that's a full-time job. And that's the thing you're doing like on top of your musical theater thing is ballet.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. You have all this energy when you're, you know this. I mean, also you do a million things, so you totally get this. But somehow when you are in that period, like I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't know. Like the first 10 years of this was all about like getting as much training as possible and getting as many perspectives as possible and performance opportunities and just like soaking it up. And I had more brain space at that point. My hard drive was less full, and so. Yeah, it does. Looking back, it's like, how on earth did that all happen in that amount of time? It does feel like I led sort of a like dance life and a theater life all both at the same time. But I'm so glad I did. And I tried to figure out for all these years which one was the real me, and I finally gave up and said they're all me. And I love all these things. I love going back and forth between these different mediums, and that's actually the thing that I love the most, probably.
That's why it's so good that you called, even though I know it was a joke at the beginning to call your dance company the Chase Brock Experience. Like it's perfect because it limits you in zero ways. Except that they can't take you out of it, which is awesome. Whereas if you called it like the Modern Dance Collective, you couldn't have done ballet, you know? And it circles back again around to me and why I called the show Laura Heywood Interviews instead of the Broadway Girl Show. Because the vast majority of my guests are my friends from Broadway. But as you said before, we are not our obsessions. And I like the idea that nobody can take over this show and nobody can take over your dance company.
Absolutely.
Although I suppose there is like the Martha Graham Dance Company.
Well, you know what? In the world of American modern dance right now, all of these companies are reckoning with that exact question because, and really you've seen some of them do it really well. Like obviously the Merce Cunningham Trust developed this unbelievable plan for exactly what would happen when he died. And, they set the standard for creating this legacy document and this like 2-year legacy tour and then licensing. And I mean, they really figured that out.
Fosse has similar things, right? Like you have to, the only people who teach Fosse choreography are people who learned from Bob Fosse.
Yes, if Nicole Fosse doesn't say you can, you're not. No, totally. And that's unique because I think in the Broadway world, really, it was Jerome Robbins has probably the most of the director choreographers has the most kind of infrastructure, and there is the DeMille Working Group, which is smaller, but does monitor how her work is licensed and recreated and all of that. And the Bob Fosse thing is new. I think around the time of the musical Fosse, which of course was co-created by one of my early mentors, Anne Reinking, who I studied with in the summers, and then she was the first person I assisted on Broadway when I was 19.
Wasn't this like 2 months after Chicago, after she won the Tony or something?
That's when I went to her summer program. That's exactly right. I auditioned for her program in like January of 97, I think. She and they won the Tony in the first week of June, and we were together the first week of July in her summer program.
Nice timing.
Oh my gosh, that was just lucky. But after that,
I have mixed feelings about the word lucky.
Well, it's like preparation meeting opportunity,
right? And
meeting
it's not like
openness.
you just like found an entry slip on the ground, you know.
True.
Like
it was not true.
You
luck
were ready
in that way. Yeah. And and I do think that with that show, obviously Chicago, it was such a mania. And when I moved to New York, oh my God, everyone was wearing black and everything was all about all
Leg
that jazz. And,
warmers.
yeah, it was like really hardcore Bob Fosse obsession. And then, coming 2 years later, or a year later, actually, out of town, Fosse, that I think is when probably the powers that be, Nicole Fosse and the kind of Fosse-Verdon estate folks started to really realize they had to kind of get their legacy in line. And so it is exciting to see that kind of structure is now becoming more popular for choreography in particular because, you write these things in the air with bodies and hearts and minds in real time, and then they're gone. And, it's... Dance is ephemeral, and dance should be ephemeral. It's this, verb that happens in front of us, and then it's gone, and that's magic. But we have the technology in the 21st century. We don't want to lose the archive and the record of all this work.
But it's an archive that's held. It's almost like biology because it is cellular. It's held within the confines of the individual bodies. And the only way it can be shared, I think, in an authentic way is body to body. Woof, like no matter how many great archives there are at Lincoln Center or whatever, you can watch it, but you can only watch it in 2 dimensions.
Yes.
And maybe they'll create those like holographic choreographers or something. Oh my gosh, maybe that's the future of the Chase Brock experience.
Holograms.
But do you think that, let's say 80 years from now, you're going to live a nice, long, productive life. Could the Chase Brock experience live on, and what would it look like?
Yeah,
you're a young dude.
On one hand, it's impossible to imagine that. On the other hand, who knows? I know that, Paul Taylor and Twyla Tharp and all of the greats, they weren't thinking about legacy at the beginning and in the first 10 years or 20 years of their careers, so many of those people recently have had a 50th anniversary or 60th even. And, and so now they're thinking about that. So I don't know. Anything is possible. I do agree with your premise that we did not put the word dance anywhere in our title. We didn't even put the word theater in our title. Because of course dance is theater in a theater is a wider term than we often think that it is. But as technology changes, as social media changes, as the way we consume entertainment changes, I have all kinds of ideas, but people younger than me and smarter than me and more millennial than me have better ideas. And so I will say that, we're in our 12th year as a company, and what we're focused on right now is evening-length narrative work that reaches out to people who may not know they're interested in dance. That's the thing that excites me the most. Story is really how you rope in a wider audience. But we're not just thinking about it on stage. We're thinking about podcast content and micro social Instagram, all that stuff. And so,
you better call me.
Oh my God, are you kidding? We'd be so lucky. But yeah, I hope that there's a lot of ideas. I think the idea of in the first decade of our work, my voice was out a lot, really prominently, and I do see that the collaborators and the dancers have more agency in this second decade, and I'm really excited about that. And I can feel that part of myself that wants to mentor and push forward other voices and other people coming up, and I'm excited about that. So who can say what's exactly to come, but it's on my mind, certainly the inclusion of more voices.
It's so smart to think about to keep yourself from considering legacy too deeply, because that's like asking how the Be More Chill team knew that they were going to get to Broadway. It's like if you're trying to think about what you want people to think of you 100 years from now, you're not focusing on the work. And I have this, I'll have to find it because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I have this list that I created of like 8 rules for sort of living your dreams. It sounds so cheesy, but one of them is create work or create art with the resources you have now, with the people who are around you now. If you wait for the circumstances to be perfect, you'll never make anything.
Yes.
But if you just, if what you've got is a cardboard box and like your kid sister's stuffed animals, then create a show with them. And then, maybe if you really have fun with it, I don't know, like your teacher will see it and want to make it into something bigger. But even if they don't, then down the line, when you do have more resources, you'll have all this practice, which
Yes.
which are included in those 10,000 hours.
Practice.
Yeah, and you don't have to think about it as practice. Think about it as playing.
Mm.
But don't be like, well, I don't have, a podcast, so I can't. It's like talking to a tape recorder. I literally did that when I was a kid, and
Yes.
that's outdated references. But
I love
like,
that
just
spirit.
play.
I totally agree with you. And I think that there is never going to be a moment when we have the exact right resources or the exact right people. It doesn't happen. I have done a $75 million Broadway musical, the most expensive musical in history, and still we were told no when we asked for certain things.
Like what?
There was a casket for Uncle Ben's funeral. And
This is Spiderman Turn Off the Dark. by the
Yes,
way.
and we wanted to, I can't remember, we wanted to etch it in neon or it wanted to light up in a certain way. And we were, and I think the price tag for that was like $9,000. And we were asked if we could come up with a different solution that was a quarter less expensive than that or, something like that. But the point being that there is no unlimited moment there, and you create and you so often come up with better, more interesting solutions when there are, boundaries to push and pull against. And so Balanchine had, of course, that famous quote that I absolutely love, which is that he made his dances on union time, and he really just got on with it. He did not sit around in a room kind of like having it out with God and, all of that. He just got in the studio and began making. And that has been a real North Star for me. And that is how I work. I don't waste a moment in the studio. And especially when I'm working with my company, I don't come in with any prepared steps or anything like that. But the dancers will not be waiting around ever at all. It's just the way I've trained myself to go, 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 go. I'm endlessly obsessed with composition and compositional practice. And so it is, that, and not everybody, that is not the best way for everybody to work. And some people might be like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'm going to waste 3 hours because I haven't, but it's my best, most spontaneous way is I just start making. And but it really is that Balanchine quote is always in my head because get on with it.
Well, I remember hearing you say that you that for a while you just like after work go get a studio for an hour or a couple hours, choreograph something within a very short window of time, film it, and see if you had enough ideas. And the only way to find out, anybody can sit around. The classic example is people who sit around and be like, we should make that into an app. And then they're like, yeah, I could have made $1 million if I just made that app. But it's like having the thing pass through your head is not the same as making it and doing it and practicing it and figuring out if it actually has legs. And you were doing that from a really young age. And listen, I just got goosebumps during that last thing you were talking about going and because I was like, it's your name. It's a Chase.
Oh.
You're like so perfectly named. And I love the idea of the Chase Brock experience having this inherent movement in the name because of that word Chase.
Wow. Thank you for that gift. We are always talking as a company about how we can continue to live up to that silly name, and it has meant everything from it should be a full-fledged experience where all of your senses are awakened through design and music and sound, and and even in our last piece, the smell of the set was a really dynamic element. But my name and Chase and that sense of that verb and movement, we have never talked about that actually. So I know that my board will be excited to brainstorm about this now that you've given us that little clue. Thank you.
I always feel I almost got, I was like one credit shy of a minor in creative writing in college. And we always talked about naming characters. We go really deep into whether it was from mythology or what is the word origin or whatever of the name. And I feel like for you, Chase would either, if I was writing you as a fictional character, Chase would either be the perfect name or too obvious a name.
Yes.
And they'd be like, can you just make it a little bit less on the nose.
But it's all subjective, right?
Of course.
For you, that might be the perfect name.
Well, now
for
we
that
have to figure out
character.
what Brock means.
Yeah. I know. I
maybe we should just I think of Brock as sort of a country club, like
It's a little bit of an
squash
upper
player
crusty,
or something.
yeah.
Like,
I
and
don't come from that background,
I feel
but
like
it does
we
sound
should,
like that.
well, more as a first name,
Yes, of
Brock.
course.
I feel like, how the word Chad, like the name Chad is used these days to mean a certain kind of guy. I feel like Brock can have that.
I agree
Maybe we
with
should just
you.
get a bunch of those dudes and chase them around a parking lot and call it the Chase Brock.
That would be an experience.
It would be. This is brainstorming where you just throw ideas at the wall no matter how bad they are.
That's right. Editing is phase 2.
So what I love about this is that it's the perfect segue into what I wanted to talk to you about next, which is wordplay. Because I have never before thought about wordplay as something that goes into dance. Because dance is movement and words are, they're made up sounds out of your brain. They're like, words are kind of the opposite of dance. One is really primal and one is really intellectual. But you did something with your choice about choreographing the Squip that is a complete pun on the word digital.
Oh.
You were like, okay, this is a computer.
Yes.
It's digital. And then you were like, what else does digital mean? It means your fingers. It's how your fingers, which are also called your digits, move. And I just got goosebumps again.
Oh.
You made this quote unquote digital character computer-wise into someone who has a sort of sign language type but full-on dance choreography language with his digits. Whoa!
Oh,
Mind blown!
thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's you're always doing that in theater. You're always, as a choreographer, if you are worth your salt, you are trying to figure out how to take the information that comes usually from a text or inside the text or underneath the text or behind the text or just before the text. And you're trying to figure out how to render those ideas into physical form and how to help actors embody and bring out whatever themes or ideas, come out of that. And so I think that the process that led to discovering that a digital character should have a digital language was the same process that I always employ on musicals, but I think it really was the perfect fit in this case. And I think that it was just a really, really happy arrival point. And I should mention Jason Tam, who performs this, also is a big part of the equation because he was able to take all of that material and speak in that language. If it had felt like I just kept him in a studio for hours and hours and hours learning all of this complicated movement, which is true, if it had felt like that in the end point, I might have been proud of him, though it wouldn't have been effective. What makes me the most proud is that I gave him a language and he speaks in it, and he's utterly fluent in it. And, so I think that it is subliminal. And I think when I'm making choreography in theater, I really do not tend to show off. It's just not my thing. I'm not into that. I don't want to make it about me. I don't want to pull the audience out. I have had, basically a 20-year masterclass being partnered with so many excellent directors. And I've worked with so many directors who work different ways and, but all of, who have had really smart insights. And I've just been trained to not stop the action to do a dance. And so in a funny way, I don't know that everybody, and they don't have to, but I don't know that everybody notices the work that I do in theater or especially the beautiful way that you succinctly just summarized what the Squip is doing in movement. I don't know that that's conscious for most people, and that's totally okay. It doesn't have to be, but I have to say it's so it's incredibly rewarding to hear you describe the process and the product in such a specific and beautiful way. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, it helps that I've seen the show, I think, 10 or 11 times.
I was going to ask you.
I'll be back on Wednesday.
Ugh.
I will say the show has been incredibly generous with me. And I know that can be hard for some people who see on my Instagram and on my Twitter and on YouTube where I'm like, yeah, I'm there once a week.
Yes.
And it's not because I'm like massively rich. It's because the show has invited me to come because of the post-show hang.
Yes.
So on Wednesdays, there's an extra bonus performance after the curtain call, and they have invited me to film them and have like a YouTube channel that is just like, that has a playlist where you can watch them all over and over, and they like zip me backstage so I can get them onto YouTube fast because it's good for them and it's good for me and it's part of the family.
Yes.
And it's the first time that I've felt like a show, and not just in this case, but like this show and the way they've interacted with me and the other fans, it feels like the first time a show has really successfully treated the audience like collaborators instead of like customers.
Oh.
And that goes from like, you get seats in a certain section of the theater, you get a collectible pin, and you know there are all these different things that allow people to be involved, whether they're in the theater, outside the theater, across the world. It's like I'm sad that the show is closing. I'm thrilled that the show has set an example for how Broadway can be truly democratic.
Me too. I think we're all so sad, and we have, there's so many mixed feelings about it all. And I think like my feelings about it shift from day to day, but the message of the show and the way that it has built community is, and not even that it has built community, the way that community has built it, are bigger than this one show and bigger than this one moment and the run on Broadway. And I think it'll be interesting to see what the life of this show is and what it means to people around the world 10 years from now. I think it takes time to see how these shows infiltrate, and already there are so many wonderful high school and like community productions of this happening all over the world. So there already is this sense of ownership far beyond 45th Street, and that's really exciting for sure.
Have you done a finger tutting how-to video?
Do you know what's so interesting? I have not done that, and I wanted to do it, and my workload, especially this year, has just been so crazy that I have not figured out it just not come together. It's been on my list. I wanted to do it. I wanted to call it Squib School, and it would be so fun and so easy. What I really wanted to do to start it off was, do you remember pop-up video?
Of course.
So
on old school VH1. I mean, not even that old school, but I think for the Be More Chill
It's old
audience,
school.
they're like, "What's VH1?"
Indeed. I want to do a pop-up video of the Squib Myth, which is it's from Japan sequence, because all of
It's
that.
a gray oblong pill.
It's a gray oblong pill. It starts with this. I mean, even the way that his hand begins, it's decaying. So there's this like, even from the beginning, you sense this ominous movement, and then we settle into the red circle of the Japanese flag, and so the whole, and then this is the of course, I wish the listeners could see us doing this.
Well, okay, so yeah, well, maybe I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm totally going to put you on the spot. Like, maybe we can do like a little. Will you explain it, and I'll just film you right
Let's do it
now,
Maybe
and then
today is the day.
We'll make it like a bonus feature.
I have to let everyone know that I'm really in like a casual Friday look today. It's I didn't know we were going to go.
Well, we don't have to.
No, let's do it. Are you
All right,
kidding?
move your mic over to the side a little bit.
Tell
Yeah,
me.
like
Can
that.
you see me?
And then you're getting all this in real time, everybody.
We're renovating the
and we're
radio
just gonna.
station.
I'm interested less in like a how-to
Yeah.
in this particular moment than I didn't know that the fist was the red sun.
of
Okay,
course.
so we're starting the video now. This is Laura Heywood live on Laura Heywood Interviews. That's Chase Brock, and he's in studio with me today with his hand up, ready to show us
What I call the Squib Myth.
the Squib Myth, and this will be on the Broadway Girl NYC YouTube, and he'll speak the explanation so the radio audience can hear it too.
Yeah. So, so Rich starts here, and his hands decay. So you see his fingers, you almost get this ominous sense, and he arrives at the red dot of the Japanese flag.
So this is going from like a high five hand,
Yeah, right.
slowly into a forward-facing fist.
That's right, exactly. It's from Japan. It's a gray oblong pill. You get this little flourish of magic that's digital. Again, they have that great exchange about it's a digital connection. So you see the digits, and we arrive at this pill. This is the Squib gesture.
So it's like a tornado with your fingers,
Yes.
and then it's about this big.
Yeah, it's like an atomic. It's like everything, this circuitry and wiring, and bam, it arrives in this pill. And then it's like a pop-up book. It comes forward, so it pops up and
Right
out
at you.
at you. Gray oblong pill. Boom. And this is, again...
This is the hard part.
This is the hard part. So then it's almost like taking the spark of that and then it explodes out into what essentially, like, I think of this, it looks a little like the Itsy Bitsy Spider.
Totally.
And it's frames, which later in Sync Up is what Jeremy looks through to see the students in a new way. So it comes back later. But it's like, I imagine it as almost like the building blocks of DNA, but it is not organic. It is a angular kind of computer
like
coding.
8-bit.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
like the little squares
That's right.
that
There's
make
only
up
this much animation. 1, 2 frames, exactly. I have to keep going back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Ray oblong pill, quantum nanotechnology. So
two flat hands at a right angle.
2 flat hands creating this corner. And then it opens up almost like a manual. So this is like the user manual of the script, of the Squip, I should say. Boom. And
it's the script of the Squip.
It is the script, and that is a play on the word Squip is a play on the word script,
right.
because it is
Tells you
Jeremy's
what to do.
script. It tells you what to do, exactly. And then it slides across. So it's almost like, I imagine this like a copying machine, or like a kind of like bar of
like
light
scanner.
that comes across scanning. Exactly, because the Squip is a kind of learning-based device that keeps like scanning the environment and picking up clues.
Oh yeah, you can't describe what you're doing now on radio.
I can't describe this.
It's
but
like it's a two-handed tornado.
It's a two-handed tornado, and it's like a tidal wave that's to come, because this is this tiny whisper in a bathroom now, but it will literally overtake the entire school. And then it's like you're in an elevator of your mind and you're going down.
How in the world did you come up with all of this?
You know what? It's you just go to the text and you get great lyrics. Jack Honest. All right, and then we create essentially a plus sign. There is a lot of, later in Pitiful Children, this is the first glimpse of that kind of like forearm based. So we're no longer in digits. It's actually gotten bigger than that now. And just briefly, it turns to an X, which in my mind is like the poison sticker that goes on a bottle under
like,
the sink. Yeah, exactly. So in my head, the tongue is out and the eyes have X's over them. But it's just a second. So it goes boom and it comes back. And then we get, what is this? CPU, the quantum computer in your travels through your blood until we get like, I see this as both like the veins and arteries in your body, but also with like a copper circuitry with wiring with like, fiber optic.
Yeah, like a spark that travels along a wire, and you can see it
Exactly.
sort of going like.
Yes, a dangerous one. And it arrives, it implants.
So you wiggle your fingers across your face or across your shoulders.
Up your body to your brain. It implants in your brain, and it tells you, so it's going from your brain, tells you what it travels down to your mouth to do.
And then
it goes into the world like a spell.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for letting me film that.
We did the pop-up video, finally.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm turning the video off now. That was amazing. I didn't actually plan to do that, but you watch, that's about to go viral.
I'm excited.
I'll tell you what, I was going to save this for the very end of the show. We still have about 12 minutes left, but I want to do it now because when I put that video on YouTube, I'm going to set it so that it gives a portion of any money that it makes to your charity of choice.
Oh my gosh, that would be so dreamy.
It is really, really important to me that having any kind of public platform, I take advantage of that for the good of making, like the good of the world. And my terminology that I've landed on is that enough little drops can make a big splash. I don't know if I made that up. I'm sure someone else has said it in the past, but I'm in a position where, look, I'm struggling to even keep the show on the air because it's not something people are paying me to do. At least not like, it's not like I got hired by some Fortune 500 company. Yeah. So I depend on like the people who can throw $7 at it a month to keep me doing it.
Throw that $7 in, sign up.
But I have budgeted in a donation to the charity of choice of every guest that I have, and it's not a big one. I'll be straight up honest. I wish that I could be like, thanks for being a guest on the show. Here's $500 for your charity. It's $5.
$5 matters.
Well, especially if every person who hears this gives $5 or $1.
Yeah.
And what, like, my biggest dream is that an organization like, we'll tell everybody who we're going to talk about today.
Yes, we're going to talk about the amazing animal rescue organization called Animal Haven, which is kind of on the Chinatown Soho border in New York City. And I happened to like wander by and saw a beautiful little 10-pound Chihuahua mix out on the street. It was the volunteer day for, I think, like ESPN's volunteer day. So everybody in ESPN shirts were out on the street walking all these dogs, and they had a arrival of 13 small dogs, Chihuahua mixes from California that day. And the very first dog that I saw, we fell in love with and became our dog, Hudson. And so we have a special place in our heart for Animal Haven. But again, if you follow them on Instagram or on social media, they are doing unbelievable work rehabbing dogs and cats and animals that have been in tragic situations.
I'm on their website, animalhavenshelter.
Yes.
Animalhavenshelter.org. And I've been thinking about getting a cat, and these cats are so cute.
I'm telling you, think about Animal Haven. They are the best people, and they partner with, I think it is called the Sato Project, which rescues dogs from Puerto Rico, from like storm-ravaged areas, finds these dogs, flies them to New York. Animal Haven takes a lot of them. I mean, and all the time, sort of good Samaritans will call and say, there's an animal who's like tied up, in a park. We're not sure what to do. And Animal Haven steps in. And and they spare no expense and medical expense to assist and take care of animals in need. There is absolutely no kill policy. There's a couple of beautiful dogs and animals who have been in Animal Haven for like 8 years.
What?
I'm not kidding you. They will keep that baby until they find their forever home.
All right, so animalhavenshelter.org. I'm going to make a donation. And I'm also, when I post this Squip choreography video, which really you could have done anywhere and for anybody, but we're going to make sure that it helps benefit something that's close to your heart.
You're so good. Thank you.
It just feels obvious to me.
Thank you.
Why have a public voice, no matter how big or small, if you're not going to use it to make the world a better place?
Well, you know what? It takes energy to do that. It takes energy to do everything you're doing right now, to have the idea for this show, to figure out how to make the show happen, to have the guests to come on, to produce this and host this and have this conversation, and to add a charity element. I mean, it takes energy to do that. And a lot of people would have the idea.
Almost no energy to click the donate button at animalhavenshelter.org, though.
That's right.
It's like there are plenty of people who do all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging anybody. Like, look, there are people for whom the extra $5 a month needs to go in their pocket. And I'm not judging that. That's why the show has a free version. I don't know what other people's circumstances. But what I can do is lead by example and not. I used to shame myself and be like, oh my gosh, if I only donate $5, that like looks so cheap. Then I was like, it's all I can do right now. And I'm committed to doing it twice a week for the foreseeable future. And that's not nothing.
No, it's not at all.
And so what I was going to say is my goal is, especially for an organization like Animal Haven, who is on the smaller side and maybe, not getting the number of donations that a Planned Parenthood might get, which we've also featured on the show, or like the ACLU, which one of my guests next week is going to be talking about. But like if Animal Haven, in the week that follows the interview that we do, if they were like, wait, what happened? We just got like 500 $5 donations all within the span of a week. What was that? And that'll be like the Laura Heywood effect.
Absolutely. It is. So my company is the Chase Park Experience. Yours is the Laura Heywood effect. I love that.
But again, like it has to be the result and not the goal.
Of course. Thank you for being so thoughtful. Wait, can I also say you did another thoughtful thing, which is listeners, when I walked in today, there was a beautiful copy of Agnes DeMille's The Book of the Dance that I've never seen this edition before. And Laura knew that I am a hardcore Agnes DeMille fan. I have all of her books, including Russian journals, which nobody has. I'm going to treasure this so much. I can't believe books are my favorite thing.
So you have this book, but this is not an edition you have. I wonder if this is like, is this a follow-up edition? It looks old.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say that this is me paying it forward. It's not like I went out and like bought it with you in mind. I wish that I could do stuff like that. And sometimes this was gifted to me by someone who was either getting rid of a bunch of theater books or stumbled upon them at a used bookstore or something and thought, who should have these? Laura Heywood should have these. And most of them I have.
Amazing.
And this one, and I think probably because dance is not as like ingrained into me as...
Though you know a lot. You impress me every time. You know a lot.
Well, I do a lot of research. Some of this I won't remember tomorrow.
Wow.
And when you're like, oh, like, as that quote that everybody knows. And I'm like, right, yeah, that quote about creating dance on union time. Everybody knows that one. I never heard that before.
Well, that's why we repeat these
But
things,
actually,
right?
I've never been, we were talking a little bit before about growth mindset and the idea of like progress over the long term, even when you can't see it on the short term. And I spent most of my life feeling like if I wasn't good at something the first time I tried it, then I didn't want to try it anymore because I just didn't understand that there was a difference between being new at something and being bad at it because they look the same. And so I didn't ever want to be bad at things. And I was like, quote unquote, gifted enough that there were enough things I was good at the first time I tried, and I'd get my gold star and I'd feel like, well, that's who I am at my core. Not like I worked for it, I earned it. I actually used to feel sorry for the people on my soccer teams who would get the most improved award because I felt like that was saying to them, like, you used to be bad. Like,
right.
And I always wanted to be most valuable player. I never got most valuable player because I didn't do the work because I didn't want to be most improved because that indicated that I had at one point been bad. Yuck, who wants that? And I discovered through I'm a part of this like cult gym called Mark Fisher Fitness.
Mark Fisher Fitness. They're like sparkly unicorn people. Your desk looks like a Mark Fisher
Are you
Fitness
surprised that I found my home there?
No,
And that's where I
love
learned
them.
about growth mindset and focusing on progress and all this other stuff.
Wow.
But so, Chase, I'm going to tell you something that I don't think I've said aloud to anybody, and I don't know that I fully admitted it to myself. I certainly have not committed to it, but I think I'm about to commit to it. I want to learn how to dance.
You so should. Everyone can dance. And I can I'm looking in your eyes and
I'm
like
so scared of it.
it's not scary.
But this is a city full of people who have been dancing since they were 5 years old.
You've seen through Mark Fisher Fitness that you can find your way outside of all of that perfection stuff and all, because we all bring that to it, right? But like you will find a safe space. You will find
How do
the
I
right
find it?
class.
Because I don't feel like I should be going to Broadway Dance Center, and like because that's where the pros go. And I know they have these beginner classes, but I'm like beyond a beginner.
Yeah.
I can't even really walk without tripping over my own
But you
feet.
said the key, which actually I'm going to remember, which is new is not the same thing as bad.
Yeah.
And you can be new at something. I love that. What an exciting thing to be able to be. Like it's sort of, I'm going to tell you this also. Martha Graham never started, first of all, not only did she not take a dance class,
Oh
she
my gosh,
never
I actually
saw
know
dance
this
until she was
one.
20 years old. And then she
Yeah.
single-handedly
Yeah,
in
but
the
I'm
rest of her
40 years
lifetime-
old, Chase.
Well, come on.
I have twice
But Martha
as much
Graham
time to make up.
changed the world. You don't have to change the world. That doesn't have to be your goal from the outset. But like you can totally dance. I can see it.
Oh my gosh.
You're going to be great.
Well,
but listen,
if
sincerely,
you think of
ask
any
around.
safe places,
I will,
for a
and-
non-dancer.
I will. And the listeners who are people in the New York community, like where we are, who dance and who take dance classes, and because there's also many actors who don't consider themselves dancers.
Yeah,
first.
and those people piss me off because they're like, I'm not a dancer, and I'm like, you just were in this like super tap heavy Broadway musical. Like, don't tell me you're not a dancer, because then when I say I'm not a dancer, people are going to think I can do what you can do.
Oh,
You know
the,
what I
the
mean?
psychological games we play.
My
with
favorite
ourselves.
story is Rory O'Malley, though, who was nominated for a Tony for Book of Mormon for this big tap number, and he was initially just in the ensemble as one of the like generic Mormons. And they kept coming up. They sort of came up with this openly closeted gay guy, and they were like, "Maybe we'll add a tap number. Can you tap?" And I don't remember whether he said like yes, even though he couldn't,
I can learn tonight.
or whether he said, but yeah, he said that he went and took classes with a bunch of 6-year-old girls to learn how to shuffle ball change, and I don't know how much of that is like hyperbole, but he got there.
Absolutely.
I just
There's
wish
no
that I
shame
was
in
famous enough to go on. Go on Dancing with the Stars.
Yes.
Because they do these boot camps for them
Right.
that are like 8 to 10 hours a day. And
Yeah.
with that kind of training, I feel like I could learn.
But there are adult classes in New York, and there are classes at great places like New York Theater Ballet has adult classes. Mark Morris Dance Group has a fabulous community dance program. I mean, there are places that are not at, in Times Square at Broadway Dance Center where it's stressful. Do you know?
Maybe what I need to do is, because my comfort zone is broadcasting,
Yeah.
whether it's on a podcast or whether it's on social media or whatever, and I'm really trying to branch out into the YouTube thing. Maybe what I need to do is create a little series of going from being new at something to being okay at it.
Yes.
Like new at, maybe I'll call it like new at this.
I love that. People, we need that language. People, we all are like, oh, I'm bad at this thing. Being new at something is different.
And
I'm
what if
obsessed
I
with
did?
this.
What if I did like an 8-week or like an 8-episode series? We're about to wrap up the show, but I'm like,
You're conceiving. Keep going.
I'm making art in my head. I could do like an 8-episode series called "New at This Dance."
Yeah.
And then after that series is over, I can be like, "New at this welding."
Yeah, you could just pursue
know,
everything you're mildly
New at
interested
this car repair.
Crochet,
It could
yeah.
like literally be anything.
in. I love it. I'm tuning
All right.
in.
All right. We're going to talk further about this. Chase Brock, you're amazing.
You're amazing.
Everybody can follow you on social media at Insta Chase Brock on Instagram, at Chase Brock on Twitter. Please go to animalhavenshelter.org and make a donation, whether it's $5 I'm donating, whether it's $1, whether it's $100 million if you've got it. And go see Be More Chill before it closes in August.
Hashtag chill summer till August 11th.
And just like most importantly, I think we'd both agree, just like make something, do something that brings you joy. It doesn't matter if anybody sees it or whether it goes anywhere, because if it's making you a more full human being, then the world will end up being a better place.
Gorgeous. I can't add to that. Perfect.
I love you, Chase Brock.
I love you.